What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I just wanted to talk about something that I see a lot from hardcore players, and I call this the hardcore superiority complex. Now I'm not saying all hardcore players are like this, I'm just saying I see it relatively often, and I wanted to discuss my thoughts on this. So basically what this is, you guys have probably run into it before on the internet, or with your friends, or just people you meet that play Call of Duty, or maybe while you're actually playing hardcore game modes if you're not really a hardcore player, or even if you are a hardcore player. You get those people that seem to think that hardcore is like the pinnacle of skill in Call of Duty. I run into this all the time. Actually, a lot of times I run into this in real life. So I'll meet people. Obviously the topic comes up that I play Call of Duty a lot because I make videos and I do YouTube and stuff. And I actually run into quite a few people that are like, oh, I don't play core, that's for the noobs, I play hardcore, I'm a hardcore player. And they say it like they are absolute gods because they're hardcore players. And I wanted to sort of discuss my thoughts on what the skill difference is between core and hardcore. So with hardcore, I will admit some skills are definitely more important than some of the skills in core. One of the biggest skills that's really important in hardcore is your positioning and the way you move around the map. There is no room for error with this. Now you can completely ignore this by just camping though, so positioning and movement doesn't really matter if you camp. But if you are somebody that moves around the map a lot and you would consider yourself to be a rusher in hardcore, and you're successful with it, then you are a great player as far as your positioning and movement goes. So I'll definitely give good hardcore players that. They have great positioning and great movement, because if they don't, then they wouldn't be very good players. Also, another skill with hardcore is sometimes reaction time is more important than in core. Now, what I mean by sometimes is when you get into those face-to-face gunfights where you and your enemy basically run into each other at the same time and you have the exact same amount of time to react to each other in order to kill the other person. This is where your reaction time really matters in hardcore, whereas core you can kind of evade a little bit. There's a bit more that can happen in that split second that you have to kill your enemy or before he kills you. But at the same time, with the reaction time, it also means less in some situations because you can't react to being shot at from a direction that you don't know about. This goes kind of hand in hand with the positioning. So if someone's waiting in a corner that you happen to walk by, let's be honest, even a good player can't check every single corner every single time. If someone happens to take you off guard and start shooting you in the back, reaction time means nothing in this situation. You're just dead. You're simply dead. There's nothing you can do about it. Whereas in core, I feel like reaction time is a skill that still needs to be mastered for those face-to-face gunfights. It's still going to be the person that reacts first will win most of the time. Keep in mind I am also ignoring connection when I'm talking about all of this. But the person that reacts first will have the advantage going into the gunfight. But also, if you do start getting shot from behind or from the side or from somewhere you don't expect, reaction time plays a big role in allowing you to actually react to the situation and try and shoot your enemy or shoot back at your enemy or just duck behind cover and get out of that situation. So I feel like that's a skill as far as reaction time goes. I feel like it's a little bit better balanced for core, as with a lot of the other skills. Because in hardcore, the skills that are less important are, number one, aim. And some people will argue this point with me. By aim, I mean your ability to not only hit your first shot or two, but to hit multiple consecutive shots. That's what aim is to me. It's not about being able to hit your first shot. It's about being able to hit several shots in a row. In hardcore, this isn't really important. You can kind of spray in the general direction of your enemy, and as long as you reacted first and you were positioned better, you're going to get that kill almost every single time. It doesn't really matter if you land your first shot every single time in hardcore, based on my experience with it. Another thing, I kind of mentioned this with reaction time, is in hardcore there's no ability to evade. So that's a skill that is basically non-existent in hardcore, for the most part. There's a few situations where you can, but when you're talking about playing against like equally skilled players, for instance, there is no chance to evade a gunfight that you don't like. If you're in a gunfight, you're playing that gunfight out till either you are dead or your enemy is dead almost every single time. So what do I think overall about like which one takes more skill? Is it core that takes more skill, or is it hardcore that takes more skill? Because they do require different skills. Overall, I feel core requires a better balance of skills. Hardcore is a little bit more extreme to one side. It's all about that positioning. Whereas core, to me, positioning and movement is still very important. It's still something that definitely separates a really good player from a player that doesn't really know what he's doing. Positioning is very important, but it's not quite as important as in hardcore. It's not the number one thing that decides a gunfight. It's not like, if I'm positioned better, I will win all of my gunfights. It's, if I'm positioned better, I will have the leg up in every one of my gunfights, but I have to have the gun skill to back that up, and I have to be able to hit multiple consecutive shots on my enemy. Also, I already kind of talked about this, but reaction time is important not only when reacting to a face-to-face gunfight, but also when you have to try to evade an enemy in core game modes rather than hardcore. So I feel like it takes a little bit more skill as far as reaction time goes in core game modes rather than hardcore game modes. Also, the number one thing, again, I already kind of brought this up, to me, one of the highest level skills in Call of Duty, at least for console, is your ability to hit consecutive shots very consistently. You'll see, if you watch a player like the Markov J, he rarely misses anything. He's always hitting his shots, and therefore he's very, very difficult to kill. It's pretty easy to kill somebody that kind of sprays all around you, sprays a circle around you, hits a few shots on you. It's very difficult to kill a player that does not miss his shots. So I would say this is kind of a higher level skill that doesn't really matter that much in hardcore. Of course, you still have to hit your 2 shots or whatever it'll take to kill, sometimes 1 shot depending on your the gun that you're using. But I feel like core provides a better balance there because it requires that higher level skill more so than hardcore. Now, a couple things that I will give hardcore that core players don't have to deal with is, number 1, core players don't have to worry about shooting teammates. That is a skill in itself, knowing when to take the shot and when to hesitate, when to wait and make sure that's not a teammate you're about to kill. That is a skill that hardcore players don't have to, or that core players don't have to deal with. Also, one thing that hardcore players have to deal with a lot, not 100% of the time, but a lot, is playing without a heads-up display. So they don't have a mini-map unless they have a UAV up. That does take some skill. You have to know the maps a little bit better. You have to better predict where your teammates are, where the flow is, and basically what's going on the map. You have to be able to do that if you want to be able to be a really strong hardcore player, one that actually rushes around. And also, you don't have all the other elements of your heads-up display, so you can't see how close you are to a score streak. You can't see how much ammo you have left in your gun before reloading. You can't see how much total ammo you have left, and whether or not you need to start picking up guns or something like that. So those are some skills that I will give hardcore players. They have that over core players 100%. They're able to deal with those situations, and that's great. So that's really my overall thoughts on this. I feel core does require a better balance of skill, and one thing that I want to make very clear here is I am not saying that hardcore doesn't have its place in the game and that it should be removed from the game. I really enjoy myself every now and then hopping in and playing hardcore, and I know there's a lot of hardcore players that simply prefer playing hardcore over core, and they don't have this same superiority complex that I see. They just prefer it, and that's what they would rather play, which is totally fine. So I'm not saying it should be removed, and I'm also not saying that all core players are better than all hardcore players simply because of the things I've talked about here. There are some hardcore players that are much better players than me, but there are also a lot of hardcore players that aren't very good and think they're a lot better than they are simply because they play the hardcore game mode. They seem to think that hardcore equals pro or something like that. And overall, I just feel core requires a little bit more of a balance of skills. So that's my thoughts on the sort of hardcore versus core debate. Let me know in the comment section below, have you seen this from people? Have you seen that sort of hardcore superiority complex? Or are you perhaps one of those people and would like to defend your side of the argument? I'm totally fine with an open, respectful discussion in the comment section below. I'll even reply to some comments if you completely disagree with me there. I'm totally fine with some criticisms to what I've presented here in this video. So if you agree, let me know. If you disagree, also let me know. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.